Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of the Risk Matrix with myself, Dr. Martin, and Mr. James Junkin. Roll
Roll
Tide.
Tide, happy Mardi Gras. See, y'all think Mardi Gras is just Fat Tuesday, right? It's not. 12 days after Christmas, down in New Orleans, baby, we start celebrating Mardi Gras, and that is my Mardi Gras tree. So for all you people going to hit me up and say, James, you lazy. Why didn't you take your Christmas tree down, man? That is a Mardi Gras tree. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say this. Thank you to all the people who've reached out to us in Louisiana after the terrorist attack. We appreciate your thoughts, your prayers, concerns. I know Dr. Martin and I sympathy goes out to all the victims of the terrorist attack, especially those families who lost loved ones. 14 individuals that came to our city just to have a good time. Thank you for having us in your prayers. And I would also be remiss if we didn't say our hearts go out to all the people in Southern California that are enduring and have endured the fires that are out there. I can't imagine. As someone who endures hurricanes, at least in hurricanes, everything you own doesn't burn up. So you're in our thoughts, your prayers. We're sending you good vibes. We hope nothing but the best.
Right on. Right on. So that's Mr. James. And again, we're here with the Risk Matrix powered by Veriforce. And before we get started here with our special guest, Hunter Bradley, who is an emerging safety professional, we're going to talk to him about his trials and tribulations coming up in the field and the things that concern him. But before we do that, let's have a word from our sponsor for today's episode.
The Safety on the Edge Conference is a premier event that brings together academia, industry leaders, safety professionals, regulatory agencies, and experts to discuss and promote the latest advancements in safety technology, models, and best practices. The Safety on the Edge Conference is proud to sponsor Veriforce's Risk Matrix.
Veriforce is proud to announce the latest version of our Safeland USA accredited course called Basic Orientation 7.0. This is our flagship course that has been taken by over 1.6 million students nationwide. The newest version of this course is shorter than the last version, with condensed training and updated multimedia, but it still includes the same topics as previous courses. As always, the Safeland orientation remains with this employee through the career. It eliminates the redundancy of multiple orientations, and it stores all the training records in a single centralized database for everyone to use. Also, we offer two solutions for getting the training. You can either seek out Safeland training from one of our third-party providers, or you can send one of your instructors through our Train the Trainer program to teach your own employees. If you're interested in learning more, please contact our training sales department at 888-482-9101. That's 888-482-9101, or you can email us at trainingsales@veriforce.com.
All right, James, here we go. We have Mr. Hunter Bradley. Welcome, Hunter, to the show.
I'm glad to be here. Thank y'all for having me on. I'm a big fan.
Roll Tide, right? Uh, uh, he doesn't say it, James.
He's not that big a fan.
Not that big. Not that
No,
big.
Hunter's a Georgia fan, and he and I have spoken. I know you've spoken with Hunter. He is a ardent listener of the Risk Matrix, all around good safety professional, emerging safety professional. We talk very frequently on the phone, and I thought it'd be good to have him on. We always like to ask our listeners on this podcast, hey, come on, if you got something to talk about, we want to hear from you. Well, Hunter jumped at that opportunity to come on and kind of share some of his experiences as a new safety professional. You know, I can talk about safety and you can talk about safety from a combined, I don't know, what do we got? Half a century in safety,
At
Dr.
least,
Martin?
at least.
So I don't know if the challenges we have in safety are the same as our emerging safety professionals have. So you're the next generation, and we hope we have done well by you and prepared a marketplace for you to enter and practice this profession. But welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show, Hunter.
Thank y'all for having me on. I'm like I said, as Dr. Martin mentioned, I'm a big fan. Like I said, I watch this podcast every Tuesday, and it's one of the highlights of my week when it drops on around lunchtime. That's what I spend a lot of my lunchtime doing. Get ready to listen to the new episode. So glad to be here.
Rock on. Thank you, man. So let me ask you this. You're a young guy, obviously young, a lot younger than James and I, and that's a good thing, probably. Um, so are you what generation would you consider yourself? Are you Gen Y, Gen Z? You're not a
I,
millennial.
I would say, I guess, Gen Z. Like I said, I was born about in the 1997. I was born around 1997, so I guess Gen Z. I really don't go down that rabbit hole much, but I would say Gen Z.
I'm glad,
Yeah,
brother.
I'm
I'd
just
already gone to war and come back.
I'm just asking because I've got kids a lot younger than you, but you know, they're coming up with all kinds of like new slang and new things
Mhm.
and this is the kind of stuff that you're going to be dealing with or are now as a safety
Yeah.
professional, right? I'm hearing these things and I'm like, I don't know, can you just talk English to me?
See,
Tell me, talk in terms that I understand. So skibbity whiz bang, whatever. Um, tell us your concerns as you're coming up here and seeing new workers and old workers and everybody in the
I
profession.
I guess from my standpoint, I just feel like there's a gap, right? So I feel like the old folks have not been able to train the young folks because we've lost a lot of old skilled workers. It's been in the industry for a long time, so it's kind of like the younger generation is kind of having to figure out things for themselves and kind of develop their own standard, as I guess I would say, of communicating and figuring things out. So I see there is a gap, and I think especially after COVID, we just have lost a lot of senior people, and so we've kind of just the younger generation has just had to figure it out for themselves in a way.
So I know one of the ways that you've chosen to figure things out, right? You were a student of mine, but this podcast one, it seems like, and you've been reaching out, right? You've been kind of picking your mentors. And I mean I'm wondering how do you pick your mentors? How do you go about that? Because a lot of people don't know how to do that.
I guess I just research. I have spent a lot of time when I got into this field. I knew I've always struggled on finding out what I really wanted to do. Well, when I found out about this field, I knew I wanted to do it, and I knew I wanted to be successful. So I knew right then and there I needed to find people who have been in the industry for a long time, who had the experience, who could teach me things that I want to know. That way, I can get to the next level. So yeah, I spent a lot of time just researching. Not only just trying to meet people locally in the field around me, but expanding my network to people that I've never met. Going with LinkedIn, uh, listen to being a part of ASSP. Just these many different organizations and I've met people who's then said, "Hey, I know this person who you can help you build on your knowledge." And that's kind of how I got to finding, of course, you, Dr. Martin, and then of course Mr. James is just through networking.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've become phone a friends. Probably
Right.
James is probably easier to tag than me though. I would think, right?
Right.
Um, and but we both love to talk once you get us on the phone.
That's
Yep.
right. That's right. Let me ask you this. What made you want to get into safety?
So yeah,
Fire.
that's a good question, Mr. James. So I started out my career pretty late. I did things, and I guess you'd say backwards, but I don't necessarily say backwards. I still did things successfully, I guess. So I started out welding. I got out of college, decided I want to go make big money. So I decided to go into the oil and gas industry. Started out working as a welder's helper in the oil and gas industry on pipelines, compressor stations. Did that for several years, and I have a good memory of what kind of got me into safety. I was doing a job. I was actually working on 40-inch pipe, getting ready to clean the weld, and I was using a wire wheel, and I had a glove on, and I went to stop the wire wheel with my hand. And I had the new site safety manager just happened to be walking by that time, kind of getting his feel for the site, and he seen me do that. He comes up to me and he says, in a very polite way, he says, "Do you like your hand?" And my response to him was like, well, of course I like my hand. Why wouldn't I? And he was like, could you please not stop that wheel with your hand next time? I said, but I have a glove on. I have a thick welding glove on. It's not going to cut my hand. And,
Well, it does.
till it does. And so after that moment, we got to talking, and he kind of mentored me a little bit. And that's kind of when I knew from that moment, I said, hey, maybe he's actually out here trying to make a change and make a difference. And he actually, is trying to prevent people from getting hurt. So that led me to, eventually make my way back home, got a job around home, decided, what, I want to learn more about this field. So I'm going to go back to school. Found out about CSU. Like I said, went and was gratefully able to get my bachelor's in occupational safety and health as of last year, the end of last year. And now I am currently working on my master's. Just started this week, actually, working on my master's
Good
in
for
safety
you.
through West Virginia University. So that's kind of how it got me here, and it's been a good ride. And like I said, I love it, and I'm on fire for safety. I just love this field. I'm so passionate about it.
So I can feel that when I talk to you, and I know when James talks to you, you can feel that. And I was thinking today because I have a couple people who work for me, kind of for some of my clients, and you can tell that there's some really good qualities, and you possess these, and you can tell just by the way you talk. One, that you care about people, right? Because what ignited your fire there was somebody giving a crap basically to say, hey, Hunter, do you like your hand, instead of like, hey, don't do that, right? So one, you like people, you got a good approach, right? You're personable, and you're passionate about it, right? You're always learning, and those are really great qualities to start out in this career, right? Be careful not to lose those things as you get jaded, right? Because
Right.
James and I have, I mean, he said half a century. I think it's probably more than that because I'm going on my 35th year this year, in my career, and I know James.
I used to have more hair.
I don't want to. I used to have
Safety
more hair
makes your
too.
hair. Hey man, I used to be young like you. I used to have that beard, the black hair, just like
Grecian formula,
you. Now I look
Grecian
like
formula,
Santa
James.
Claus, and it's because
There's
uh,
hair dye for that.
that one.
CVS. Um, so you can't lose that passion, right? And I know that I have times. I don't know if James can speak to this too, but do you have those times when you just kind of get in a funk and you think, "Am I making a difference?" Right? And my answer to you is going to be, you're always making a difference if you're always applying yourself to keeping your eyes open and doing the job like the job should be done, right? Which is walking around and making sure people are safe. So tell us about some of the things that are going on now that you're full time in the career. Like what are the things that are confounding you?
I, I guess for me, and like I said, Mr. James probably hears this a lot from me, is how we struggle to do the basics with compliance. I feel like we overcomplicate things in a sense. I feel like we talk the talk, but we can't walk the walk. Um, I see that as an issue, but I also see that we just do not have enough senior safety professionals that are willing to teach the younger generation. Just from my experience, I haven't been in the industry long, but like I said, going on a couple years, and everything that I've had to learn, I've had to, really do my research and dive in and really try to get that information and learn trial by fire. And that's kind of something it's been kind of frustrating, because I want to teach people right, but how can I teach people right when I'm doing all I can to get the knowledge that I need to do that?
Well, I
Mhm.
think you're correct in some respects here, if I can interject. Be careful emerging safety professionals and who you pick to be your mentors. Okay. Early in my career, I had the benefit of having some great mentors. Okay. But then I started doing professional development courses, and I'd go and I would sit down with an unquestioning attitude with my notepad and my pen and everything this instructor's saying, I'm writing down and I'm taking at face value. Then I would take that information and regurgitate it to my students and found out a few years later I was wrong. I was
it
telling
just
them things that
depends.
were wrong.
And it just depends. See that's the part that hopefully a good mentor will teach you, right? Is all that stuff that James was writing down and all that stuff that he was applying early in his career, and I was too, that there actually is an art to what we do. And maybe that sounds really silly at times, right? That I feel like there's the regulation, there's best practice, there's common sense, there's what is right, there's ethics, there's all of these things that go into the mix. It's like a potion, right? And it just depends on exactly all of those things making up your question at the time, right? So it's not just about going and getting a degree, right? Because we can tell people go get a degree and you'll learn everything you need to know. You don't learn everything you need to know because if you're not A, continually learning, B, using your personal skills, C, thinking outside the box, right? What's feasible, what's not feasible, what's right, what's wrong, is there wiggle room, these kind of things. If you don't think about those things, you're ineffective. That's just my opinion, right? And I think like James says, you have to pick somebody who is creative enough and who is kind of even-tempered enough to say, I know this is what Dr. Martin's book says. I know this is what James said in his presentation. But what I'm looking at is slightly different. And can I apply myself to make this problem, put it in a box and deal with it, right? And if I can't, who's my phone a friend?
I'll tell
Who's
you,
my phone a
if
friend?
you run across safety professionals, I don't care what age they are, particularly our age with the longevity we've had in the field, and they say they've never changed their mind on anything, beware of those people. You grow in this profession. I've changed my mind on a lot of things, particularly how it goes about implementing a safety management system, how to identify hazards, how to move beyond compliance. And I want to applaud you for something that I did not really do early in my career is Hunter gets into the standards. He reads the standards. Then he goes and reads the letters of interpretation. Then he calls and challenges, what I may think or what my opinion is on this. And he's like, well, Mr. James, there's a letter of interpretation from over. He's like a walking encyclopedia. And I'd have to take his calls near the internet.
It's good
so
for
I can
him,
get on there
Hunter. It's good for him.
But look, that's how you learn. If you don't know what the regulations are, then it's just a matter of opinion. And I find that we read regulations like we read the Bible. Everybody knows what John 3:16 says. Nobody's got a clue what John 3:15 says, what John 3:17 says, what the third book of John's about, how that fits in the entire book of John,
That's
how
right.
it fits in the New Testament. They don't look at it in context. They just go and say, where does it say I need to be clean shaven? Okay. Where does it say I need to do X, Y, Z? And you miss out on the total context. So I think that's good advice from you to other emerging safety professionals is get in the standard, especially in your craft and trade that you're in. You got to know everything there is that's applicable to that trade. So if you're going in confined spaces, you got to know everything there is about confined spaces. That's not only the standard, but stuff NFPA says about it, things that are over in the construction standard and subpart AA, what are the letters of interpretation they're on?
Different tasks you're doing inside the confined space.
Absolutely. So, that's I think you're doing a great job. I got a follow-up question because you do a lot of work. What advice do you give to working professionals of any age that are going back to school to get their degree?
The sky's the limit, right? I tell them all the time. I said, you can do it. You just got to put your mind and your motivation to it. What drives you to get to the next level. I tell them, find what motivates you and do that. Like I said, and that's kind of what helped me. I knew I wanted to get to the next level in safety, so that's why I went and got my degree. I knew I wanted to get to the next level with my master's, so I'm getting my master's. So I tell them, you know, go after what you're passionate about and what interests you, and just do not stop learning. Continuous education.
Yep. And as a professor, I'm going to say when people go back to school, one of the things that they do is they say, I'm going to go back to school, right? But you have to make room in your life to go back to school, right?
That's a
And I hear
fact.
this all the time, but I've got this and I've got that and I've got this. If you're passionate about it and you're going to go back to school, then use that opportunity to learn and set aside the time and have the talks with your family, your wife, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, or whoever it is, your significant other, your kids, that XYZ, this is what's going to happen so that I can be successful in learning, right? Because there's no sense in going back to school and putting yourself in a learning environment or a professional conference or anything like that if you're not going to absorb something, right? Lord knows that James and I have been at many different learning events where you glean maybe one thing. I've sat through days and days and days of conferences where I've gotten one thing, and that one thing has been worth it.
Absolutely. You can always, sometimes you look at particularly in conferences, and it'll be conference season again soon. And I always encourage people to go to conferences with a plan, right? I like to go listen to things that I'm weak in, but sometimes every now and again, I'll go, for example, and listen to a lecture on energy isolation and lockout tagout. Not that I'm going to learn anything new about the standard, but I might learn a new way to teach it, a new way to relate it, and say, hey, I like how he did that. I'm going to put
That's a
that in
cool
my
example.
toolbox, and then when I need it, it'll be there. It'll be there.
And
So,
sometimes you might learn that people are putting out disinformation, and you may learn what not to do.
yeah, don't
And
stand
that's
up and
also
say,
something.
that's a bunch of crap. Don't do that.
LinkedIn.
That sounds like something I'd do, right? It's
Yeah,
something
that
I
would be
like.
me and you, James.
But let me ask you this. We talked about the school stuff. Let's talk about work. You work at a variety of different jobs in the construction field and in other industries, manufacturers, things of that nature. What are some tips that you would give emerging safety professionals when they get their first job? Because a lot of times their first job isn't in a conglomerate or a huge organization where they have tiers of safety professionals over them that can help mentor them. Sometimes they get just thrown in the fire. Welcome, you're the safety manager of
And
150.
you better fix it. You better fix
You need
it.
to fix
Everything's
this.
wrong, and you better fix
Why are
it.
your injury rates out of whack, dude? You know
I,
what
I
advice?
would I would say that's a big one, because like I said I know what that experience is like. And so I'd ask y'all is, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right?
Time.
So
Why's it
you
got to
take
be an elephant? Why can't it be a bulldog? Why we got to eat
right.
Could be a
elephant the
bulldog.
whole
Yeah,
time?
could be.
All right. How do we eat a bulldog?
So like you said, how do we eat a bulldog? So again, one bite at a time. I think you really have to, just do what you can do the best, and learn to say no, right? Learn to ask for help. I mean, you don't want to be handling certain programs and policies and stuff like that could potentially, if you teach wrong, you teach the employees wrong, or you interpret wrong, could get somebody hurt. So you got to start off at the little problems before you move to the big problems. For me, honestly, like I said, it was phone a friend, or if I couldn't phone a friend, is 1910, 1926 become my best friend. Like I said, I would do much research, gather my data, my information, and then try to apply it to the field. And that's kind of the process I did, if I couldn't phone a friend.
So let me ask you this. How many times has somebody said to you, I don't believe it says that. OSHA doesn't say that. That's not in the standard.
And like I said, a lot of times I would, I'd print off the standard or the company policy and read it, go take it and read it to them. I've had to do that in my experience. And I feel like, again, that'll get me on another soapbox, but I feel like we always go back to, well, OSHA don't say this. Well, one of the biggest things I preach is OSHA's the bare minimum. We ought to be doing more above and beyond OSHA. We want
It
to,
doesn't say a lot of things, but
yeah.
that doesn't preclude us from doing the right thing, right?
Exactly. I agree, Dr. Barton. And like I said, I feel like that's one of the issues I see being a young emerging safety professional is where we always have that group of maintenance guys or electricians say, well, that's not what OSHA says. Well, like I said, it's not always about what OSHA says. It's about, at the end of the day, what can we do to make sure you go home just the way you came, if not better?
Yeah. At some point you'll get gray hair, you'll look real old like James and I, and you'll be able to look them in the eye and say, I know it doesn't say it, but in the spirit of the regulation.
And in our company policy, as
And in
conditions
our
of
company's
your
policy,
employment
this is
at
how it is
this
applied.
company, we're going to do it this way.
I like that. I'm going to steal that.
You hate to be like that sometimes. But I've
I
had to
can
do
banter
that.
with the best of them, right? And I do. I get the same kind of stuff you do, Hunter. Even with 35 years of experience, I can go in the field. Namely, I worked for a crane company and I didn't know anything about cranes when I started, but really very, very little. And I learned a lot by watching, but I would banter with the best of them. I'll banter back and forth, but when it push comes to shove and there's a regulation or a standard or a company policy or whatever, I'll banter to a point and then mama's gonna lay down the law, right? And eventually you'll be like, daddy's gonna lay down the law, right? It happens. But sometimes you got to let the employee do that, right? You have to let them have that collegial banter to let them voice their concerns. And sometimes you learn stuff from them because they'll say, well, I mean, I know the standard says this, but I just can't do this job this way, right? And
And
sometimes
I've run into that. And that goes back, I'm glad I get to say it. Hazards are best controlled in the design and planning of work, right?
Amen.
And usually when we get to that point, we've created a situation, and I've had a lot of this here recently, where the design of the equipment put workers in a very bad ergonomic state and required fall protection to contort into this little area. And there was literally nowhere to tie off. And now we've got a crane involved, and we're escalating risk, right on up the tree. Where if we had just designed this thing for people to work on it, right, then we wouldn't have any of those issues. But we have those issues. We can't fix the design of it because we don't own the equipment. We're a service company, right? So those are those challenges that come in on, all right, how can I best reduce this risk to something that's acceptable to us while still maintaining compliance with OSHA? OSHA doesn't have an ergonomic standard, right? But we know what? Back injuries are the number one cause of workers' comp claims. So regardless of what the standard says, I got to protect my workers because they're still hurt. If you've never been down in your back, and I hope you never get down in your back, dude, your back supports everything. You have a bad back, everything hurts.
it's awful.
It's awful. It's awful. And usually it's from years of abuse. And then finally one day, something pops and you got a cracked L4.
See,
So
look at what you have to look forward to, Hunter.
I'm trying to enjoy these young
We're
years
all
while
like
I can.
gloom and doom.
well, that's the cool thing though. Safety is never stagnant. That's what excites me. Is something different and challenging every day. If you like both the physical challenge of working in the field coupled with the mental challenge. And so that's why I'm still engaged. I told some group today we were going up to do a CO2 injection in Michigan here next week, sending some guys up to do safety on that. And I'm like, you still get to do the fun stuff, right? The fun stuff, going out, being with the guys, doing those things. I don't get to do that as much anymore. So it's not the physical challenge that keeps me engaged, it's the mental challenge, right? At the higher level of designing the work, planning the work, making sure that if we have an incident, that the corrective actions that we come up with really address all the causal factors of incidences. So one day I was you, and then I turned around, and now I'm me, right? It just happens, right? It just happens. You get old, and there are other ways for you to work in safety using not just your mind, just your body, but also your mind. So,
What are you looking forward to, Hunter? As now as you got a couple years under your belt, you got your bachelor's, you're getting your master's. What are you looking forward to as your next, other than your master's degree, the next thing? Like what's exciting you for the future? 5-year plan.
So yes, I got that. So one of my biggest things, I've kind of fell into love with industrial hygiene. It's just a field that's just gained my interest so much. So I've spent a lot of time lately just reading a lot of on the industrial hygiene side. So I'm hoping in the next 5 years that I've kind of gotten more in that side of the safety because I love the health side of it, and long term eventually want to sit for my CIH exam, hopefully obtain that. But yeah, I would definitely love to get into the realm of industrial hygiene. Currently in an industrial hygiene course right now, loving it. But I definitely want to also do a lot more networking and grow in my professional development, and just also attending a lot more, safety conferences, and more trainings. I want to learn what it is to become a better trainer, interact better with people, and be able to communicate better, and just be a all around good professional safety person.
James is a wonderful trainer. You could learn a lot from him. James, what are some training? Are there some courses that help with
well, let
training?
me tell you how to become a good trainer. Train. The more you do it, the better you are. What you're doing. When I first got in safety, I didn't have 25 years of serious injuries and fatalities and incidents with things that bring people in and catch their attention, right? Stories entice people. They don't really, I mean, you can sit in there and quote them the regulations all day, but they won't know how it applies. So when I first got into safety, and I was doing a lot of training back then, the Chemical Safety Board, their videos gave me stories to tell. Other instructors that I listened to, I'd go
Stories.
sit down in other people's classes and listen to what they told. Mr.
And if
Larry
they've got
Bryce,
good
God rest his
slides
soul.
or good pictures or good videos, get those from them.
Get them, put them in your toolbox. And then once they're in your toolbox, you'll know when it's time to bring them out. And it'll be different for every class that you teach. Reading, adding to that body of knowledge of application in certain situations. That's what I think. But you have the benefit of YouTube. There are hundreds of thousands of people on YouTube, different podcasts that can inform you on how to train, how to be a better trainer, and then for you to understand what not to do. Right? It's like, man, I want to be that.
Attend a few and you'll know what not to do, right? I've been to a lot of conferences and I've seen a lot of people not be very good at what they do, and you
Wah,
remember
wah,
those
wah,
things.
wah. The old Charlie Brown peanuts. That's what all the adults sounded like that. Wah, 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 wah. That's showing my age, right? Does anybody watch Charlie Brown's Thanksgiving?
That's before my time. I haven't watched that much.
Yeah,
That's right.
man. YouTube it. Check out
Yeah,
Foghorn Leghorn too.
YouTube some of the Rudolph stuff too. It's frightening.
Yeah, man.
Those older, even
They
Peanuts
were mean
and
they were
they
mean.
were mean. They were mean. My kids watched those Christmas movies and they were just
Had to be tough
like
back in the day, man.
yeah,
But I want to say this before we go. I'm really excited for you in your career.
I am too.
I'm glad you think of Dr. Martin and I as one of your mentors. We appreciate you listening to us on the risk matrix as much as you do. That's why we do it. We do it for you and others like you. At some point in your career, you're going to not be a mentee anymore. You're going to have the opportunity to help somebody else. So help those people. And I think Coach Saban said it best. I'm not going to quite say it the way Coach Saban said it, but he said, you know, the true testament of leadership and whether you made a difference or not is when you leave the profession, is anybody going to miss your butt or not?
Did you leave that thread that carries on?
Right.
And I think about some of my mentors that have passed on. They're gone. And I miss them. You know, I miss all my mentors are in their 70s. And so now I'll have to look to your generation to teach an old dog new tricks. So for those of you that are experienced safety professionals, don't think you can't learn from this generation. I think we lost Hunter.
I think we lost Hunter. Well, with that, I guess we're gonna close the show, but we really thank Hunter for coming on. Hunter, I know you're gonna see this after the fact. Thank you so much for sharing your emerging professional experiences with us. We really appreciate you. And James, tell our listeners what they can do if they like.
Hey, man, you too can be like Hunter. A new episode of the Risk Matrix drops every Tuesday around noon Central. Guess what? We're over there on YouTube, and we've got almost 2 years worth of shows going back to 2023 that you can find valuable information, interesting guests, and join the conversation. We're also on Spotify, and hopefully this year we'll also be on another streaming service where podcasts are commonly found. So we'll be able to announce that in the coming weeks. Thank you for listening. Go over to that YouTube channel, hit that like button, hit subscribe, go over to Spotify, smash that thing. Man, I was sitting here yesterday, boom, notified, hey, new episode of the Risk Matrix is out. I went to check it out. It was with Jamie Brenner. Really cool episode. So
It was a good episode.
So thank you for what y'all do to bring workers home safe from high hazard jobs. Dr. Martin.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide. Until next time, you guys keep doing what you do to bring those workers home safe from high hazard jobs. Out.
Out.